Okay, so now what we are going to do is we are going to talk about a process in DevOps, which is known as continuous development. Now, what is continuous development? So there is a customer who wants to change a certain functionality. So obviously he will want that the code change happens fast. If the code change happens fast, it means somebody should be there who is making the code changes. And once those code changes are there, then the changes will also appear on my console. Now, this process of changing the code at a very fast pace is known as continuous development. So when we talk about our AWS or when we talk about our SDLC, software development lifecycle, we know that there is a phase called coding phase where the developer will start writing the code. He will write the code, and based on that, the functionality will be taking place. So I'm expecting my developer to change the code, to write the code at a regular interval. Now, what I see here is that this is the place where I am right now, code merge or code management. So a developer will be writing the code and pushing the code to a repository, to a centralized location from where everybody will be able to see the code. And that centralized location for me is Git. So I will say Git is a SCM for me. Now, many people say SCM means source code management. Somebody will say it is source control management. Somebody will say software configuration management. But at the end of the day, I want a centralized location where I can store my code and I can keep a track of what is changing, who is changing, all those things. So now here comes the concept of version control. So when I say version control, I'm saying that first let me think of a scenario. Now, I am a senior developer. I have developed a piece of code. Now I went on vacation. In my absence, a junior developer came and he has overwritten the code. Means whatever changes I have done, he has simply deleted my changes and he has made his own changes. Now the problem is that because of his changes, probably the development environment, the code is not working. Now when I come back, I will say, where is my code? Now he has overwritten the code, means my changes are gone. Now here I know that he has done the changes, so I can go and ask him, do you have a backup? If you have a backup, we can restore from the backup. But consider a scenario where I don't know who has done the changes. And I'm moving here and there and saying, tell me who did the changes. Nobody is saying I have done the change. Because I'm not able to track who has done the changes. I don't know what the change is, and hence I have to restart or I have to check everything from scratch, which is a waste of time. And here in the DevOps world, we talk about time to market, how quickly I can develop and how quickly I can present it in my environment. Considering these things in mind, I bring something called version control mechanism. So version control is a way in which whatever you keep in your DevOps or whatever you keep in your SCM, source code management tool, you come to know who changed it, when was it changed, what was changed. So at any point of time, if I know these things, I will be able to track the changes. So if there's a breaking change, somebody has introduced a faulty code. So I know who has introduced that code, when was that code change pushed, why was that change code pushed, and what was pushed as a part of that change. So here I can revert that change because I know it is causing a problem. So I can revert that change. I can label the changes like it is release 3 changes, release 4 changes. So every code change and every file is tracked. Then I get answerable questions. If I ask my team members who did the change, so they cannot keep quiet because they know that Git is going to show that. So they themselves will say that I made the changes and this is the change which I have done. In case the developer does not take a backup, Git will always take a backup and you will have multiple versions of the same code available. So in this scenario, we maintain multiple versions. We maintain multiple versions of the same file. Now, if you see here, it says version control is a system that documents changes made to the file or a set of files. So I know what changes are made. It allows multiple users to manage multiple versions of the same unit of information. So multiple copies can be maintained, and it is a snapshot of your project over a time. So let me say that I'm going for a code freeze. So let me say it is Christmas time and the customer is saying that Christmas time, most of my developers will be on leave. So I don't want to change the code. So what they will do is they will freeze the code. So I can take a snapshot, in the sense I can freeze the changes so that nobody can make changes. And during Christmas, when it is a peak business hour, peak business time, my things can go smoothly, something like that. So you see here, I'm maintaining versions, version 1, 1.1, 1.2. So I'm making small changes. So I'm saying 1.1, 1.2. When I'm doing a major change, you will see 2.0. So most of the softwares which you see in your IT world will have versions. Let me say I come here for Tomcat. Tomcat is a software which most of you might have heard about it. So you will see Tomcat has many versions. See here, you have Tomcat 10.1, Tomcat 10.0, Tomcat 9.0, 8.5. Then you have Tomcat. So there are many versions. If you go to 8.5 also, you will see that there are a lot of versions available for Tomcat. So there are multiple versions available. It's like 8.5.81. Somewhere you will find 8.5.8, like that. So there will be many versions available. And why so many versions are available? Because in each version, they are making some changes. So at any point of time, you want to track, they can track. So now the question is, which tool are we going to use to track all these things? So to understand the tool which should be picked up, we should know how many types of version control system is there. So there are two types of version control system. One is centralized, the other one is distributed. So we say CVCS, DVCS. So when I say DVCS, I will say distributed version control system. And when I say CVCS, I'm saying centralized version control system. Now, what's the difference between both of them? So if you see this guy, everything, so every developer has its own working copy, okay? Every developer has its own working copy in their local machine. Everybody is updating to the same central server. Now, what's the problem if everybody is updating? Now, load on this particular server will be very high. Load on this very particular server will be very, very high. Because of high load, it may crash. And if this crashes, all of them will become out of date, or all of them will crash. So there is a single point of failure, which is not good. So I bring a new way of working where I bring a DVCS. So this is one server, and every developer has its own local server. So this guy has its own local server. This guy has its own local server. This guy has its own local server. So the benefit is that there are multiple copies of the same file or the same code. Now, if I have multiple copies, if this guy fails, he can take it from here. If this guy fails, he can take it from here. This guy fails, we can take from here. What if the top one only fails? If this only fails, then he can take it from here. He can take it from here. He can take it from here. So I am maintaining multiple copies of the file. And because I am maintaining multiple copies of the file, I always get the latest. Now, ideally, this is my centralized server. Ideally, it is assumed that nobody should directly touch this, or there should be a guardian, GAURDIAN. So we generally keep a guardian, somebody who is a PR approver. Again, I will come to all these things. So we raise a PR request, pull request. Okay. So when I will be talking about Git branching strategy, I will be talking about this PR and all those things. But just to make sure that Any random person is not going and making changes here. Anyone who wants to make a change, first he will raise a PR request, pull request. The pull request has to be approved by the guardian. Okay, if the guardian approves, then only his change will go here. If the guardian is not approving, then his changes will not go. So by this, what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to keep this code always clean, means there is no duplicate. Like this guy is also trying to push, this guy is also trying to push, this guy is also trying to push. So there is a possibility that this code may be wrong, incorrect version. Incorrect. But I will try to keep a guardian, and the guardian will make sure that only the latest content is pushed to my GitHub. In case there are any conflicts, okay, the conflict is first resolved and then the latest change is pushed to my GitHub. So we will put mechanism, we will put methodologies by which we will be able to take care of this conflict. Okay, now show when to use CVCS. Now CVCS is an old way of working. So if you know, there are old tools like SVN. Nowadays, nobody is using it. So old way of working is CVCS. Nobody is using nowadays. Everyone nowadays use DVCS, which is Git, GitLab, GitHub, Bitbucket. So any new team which you will see, they are using the new tool. They do not use these tools. So one interview question which can be asked to you is, tell me what is the difference between CVCS and DVCS. So you have to tell the example of CVCS is SVN, which is no more getting used because there is one point of failure, a single source of failure. Because of that single source of failure, if my centralized server fails, due to some reason, this fails, everything crashes. So people have stopped using CVCS. Now they are more interested in using DVCS. In DVCS, we don't have single point of failure. In the sense, there are multiple copies of the same file and I can use any which I want. Generally, what we do is we have something called central repository. Now this central repository or the top one will always contain the latest code. The developer is working here. He will make changes and try to push it to this location. So at the end of the day, any developer who is making a change, his motto should be to push the change to central server. Guardian will make sure that the PR requests are approved. One second. Okay, so I will use GitHub. Now what I'm going to do is I am going to maintain two repositories here as a remote repository. Okay, and I will keep a local repository, this guy, local repository, which is also known as local. So this developer 1 has its own local repository, developer 2 has its own local repository, developer 3 has its own local repository. Okay, so every developer will have their own local repository, and at the top there will be a central or a remote repository. So when I start using DVCS, I have two repositories and both contain my latest code. What is PR and all? I will come to that. I just brought that point in between, but I will talk about PR in the coming classes. Now, what I have discussed that I need a SCM, source code management tool, or I need a version control tool, VCS, to keep track of my code, who is changing, what is getting changed, when was it changed, so that in case there is a breaking change or there is a problematic code, I can go back, trace who made the changes and rectify the change. Okay. Second is I will also come to know what changes are happening, who is making the changes, what changes are happening. I will keep a track of everything. Okay, that is point number one. When I talk about version control, I have two ways of maintaining the code. One is using CVCS, which is the old way of working. SVN is an example of that. And the second is DVCS, where the new tool like Git, GitHub, GitLab, and all use this technology. And this is the modern way or new way of working. When I say CVCS, the example is SVN. And when I say DVCS, the example is Git, GitHub, GitLab, and all those things. There is, or there can be an interview question which says, what is the difference between DVCS and CVCS, or what is the difference between SVN and Git? Now, the question can be, yes, DVCS is more organized, correct. DVCS is more organized. Now, the question here can be asked is, there are many tools available in the market. Like you are only saying that there are tools like Git, GitHub, GitLab, IBM RTC, Visual TFS. Now, which tool should I learn? Because there are so many tools. My company may ask me that, do you know this tool? So we pick the tool called Git. Now, why are you picking Git? You can pick any other tool. So I'll go and say Git market share. So if you come here, you can see more than 80% of the companies are using Git. So it is very beneficial for me that I should start learning Git. Moreover, if I learn Git, okay, there are high chances that my company is using Git. In case the company where I'm going to work is not using Git, the other tools are also using the same methodology or the same way of working. And that's the reason I pick Git. When you talk about Git, this is precisely how Git works. So every developer, I told in DVCS, every developer has its own version of code. So here also, we will do the same thing. We see, one second. Okay, so we see this is developer one. This developer one has its own working copy. Okay, so what he will do is, he will take the working copy, whatever working copy he has, he will make changes to the working copy and he will push the changes here. First, it will go to local repo, and from local repo, it will go to Git repo. So obviously he has to push. Now this developer wants the latest code. So first he will pull the code from here, then take to his local, make changes, and then commit the changes and finally push the changes. So there are a series of steps. So if I start new, the first thing which I should do is I should pull the code. Second thing what I should do is I should update the code. Once the code is updated, I should commit the code, and finally I should push the code back to this Git central or Git remote repo. Unless and until I push the code to this centralized location, it will not be visible to others. So let me say there is a developer who has kept all his changes here on his local machine, or he has kept all the changes here. Will this guy be able to see it? The answer is no. He will not be able to see it. Unless and until the changes are put here, nobody will be able to see the changes apart from this guy. So whenever this developer is doing any changes, he should first put it to local, and from local, he should put it to my Git remote repo. In our day-to-day scenario, we will see. I just now told what is the difference between push and commit. So if you just commit the code means it will go only to your local repo. Local repo, you are only able to see the code. But if you want everybody to see the code, then you have to push. So if you commit, you just put it in local repo. But if you push, then it comes here. Same is with this guy also. Commit means it will go here only. Push means it will go here. Now, if this developer needs the latest code, first he will pull the changes, then he will make whatever changes he want to make, commit the changes, it will go to local repository, and finally it will come here once you push the changes. So this is the workflow which I'm going to follow. Now, anyone having any questions can put it on the chat window. Okay. So if you put it on the chat window, the good thing is nobody gets disturbed. And also you understand what's going on. Same thing in a different way. Here you can see the same thing happening. You can see this guy. If he wants, he will take the code. Once his code changes are done, after commit, he will push the changes here. Okay. If the other developer needs the changes, he'll pull the changes, take the code and update the code. And then once done, commit and finally put it back here. So it's a two-way process. So there is something called local repo and there is something called remote repo or central repo. So please make sure repository means storage. Pull is equal to git clone. I'll come about the commands. Give me some time. Don't go by the commands as of now. Commands will come later. But first, let's try to understand the concepts. Now, if you see carefully, there are two types of repositories which are being mentioned here. One is centralized repo, and the other one is local repo, which is this guy. In my example, when I start my work, this centralized repo will also be known as remote repo. So both are okay. And this will be GitHub. And local repo will be Git. Okay. Please remember, this is very important. I will just reiterate that thing. This is GitHub and this is Git. I will also say this as remote repo. Okay. So the central repository or the remote repository is GitHub and the local repository is Git. Again, one interview question. What is the difference between Git and GitHub? So local repo here works as SVN. SVN is something outdated. So forget about SVN. Don't talk about SVN. SVN is something which was used in 1990s, 1980s. So it is gone. It is out of picture. Let's not talk about SVN. Okay. So SVN is a totally different concept. So there was a concept somewhere in 1990s. Let's forget about it. Okay. With CVCS, that is gone. Now we have DVCS and we will only be talking about Git. Is there any volume like amount of data only available in repository? No, there is no cap. You can put any amount of data, but considering it is a code, your code cannot be like 5 petabytes. That is not possible. But if you are writing a code, how much maximum you think it will be? 1 GB, 2 GB. So if you are putting that amount of code, there's no restriction. But again, if you put 5 petabytes and 10 petabytes of data, then obviously there is a restriction. Okay. But as of Git does not say that I have such restriction, but that is understood. So let me just clear everything. Okay. Now let's move ahead. Okay. Now, another interview question. What is the difference between Git and GitHub? So I told anything which you're putting on your local is known as Git, or local repository for me is equal to Git, and the central repository for me is GitHub. Okay. What is the difference? The first and the foremost difference is that Git is a software which you will install on your local machine. So you can see here, it says Git is a software tool. You can download it and install on your local machine. Whereas GitHub is a web service. It's a website. It is there on web. You cannot download it. You cannot install it on your laptop or desktop or cloud machine. You can create a repo and you can put it in the central server, or you put it in the Git server. So it is used to have a copy of the local. So whatever changes you do here, at the end of the day, you put here. So it is saying it is used to have a copy of the local repository, and it provides a graphical interface to store the files. I'll show you everything. And this is used to maintain different version of the source code, but on your local environment, and it provides your command line, a CLI to interact with your stuffs. So let's go step by step. So let me start with GitHub. So I told GitHub is a web service. It's a website. And on the website, you can go ahead and put your content. So let's see what is this content. Let me just erase this first. One second. Now, if I come here and say GitHub, okay, enter. I can see GitHub. So it says provider of internet hosting, software development, and version control using Git. So it says it will use Git, but it is an internet hosting. Means it is available on internet, on the web. It is not available on your local machine. So can I download Git on my GitHub on my local machine? No. So let me come here. This is the official website, github.com. So when you come here for the first time, obviously you will not have an account. So let me just sign out here. Give me 1 second. So this is the GitHub page which you see when you start here for the first time. My internet is a problem, I guess. It is showing internet is unstable. Let me open. Can we control access like commit? Can we control access of on local? Can we control access? I could not get your question, Navya. I did not understand your question. Command prompt is like Git. In Git is like Git bash. Git bash is only Git. Wait, I'll come to that visual. Give me 1 minute. Okay. Now, this is Git for me. I hope we do not need any subscription for GitHub. No, you don't need any subscription, but when you start here for the first time, you will see that this is GitHub. It says, let's build from here. And it says the entire world is doing the code changes here. So it is saying that 83 plus million developers are doing their coding here. 4 million plus organizations are using this tool, 200 million plus repositories. And this is important. Out of Fortune 100 companies, means top 100 companies, out of that 90% of them are using services of GitHub. So you can think how popular this tool is. Then if you keep coming down here, you can see all the major tools in the world like Facebook, Ford, Adobe, Pinterest, 3M, Kubernetes, Spotify, Adobe. All these are, 1 second. Give me 1 second. Yes, give me 1 second. I'm losing internet connection. Give me 1 second. Guys, give me 1 minute. I lost connection in between. I'll just resume it back. Once. Okay, guys, so I had a network issue in between because of which I had to disconnect. Fine. So let's resume. So we see here, it says that GitHub is a place where all the developers in the world, at least 90% of the developers in the world are doing the software development. It says more than 90% of the developers are using GitHub. They have 200 million plus repositories, 4 million plus organizations, 83 million plus developers. And on GitHub, all the major companies in the world like Spotify, Facebook, all are using the services of GitHub. Not only that, you can code, collaborate, develop, automate, secure, and create a community here on GitHub. Now, to get started with GitHub, you need two things. The first thing is you need a valid email ID, and with that, you can sign up. When you sign up, it will ask you whether you want to go with an enterprise account or you want to go with a free account. So free account is also known as community account. Community account is something which is free of cost, but it is not for commercial usage. So you cannot run a company with GitHub free account, but for enterprise account, yes, you can. So enterprise obviously is a paid version, and Community is the free version. So if you don't have an account, sign up here. I already have an account. So I will be using my username or email ID, and Vikas99341 is my username. You can also use your email ID, password, and you can log in. Now, once you log in, you will be able to see all your repositories, whatever repositories you have. In case you want to create a new repository, you can click on this and create a new repository. If you're creating it for a project, you can create a new project. In case you're creating it for an organization, you can go ahead and create a new organization. So this we will see one by one, but as of now, just we need to create one account on GitHub. Once I have an account on GitHub, I can also view the content of other developers. So Vikas99341. So this is me. So if I come here, obviously I will be able to see all my repositories, means how many repositories I have, what code I have. So I am the owner of the account. So I can obviously go and edit whatever I want to. But there are many repositories which I can just view. So these repositories I can view because they are available over internet, like Facebook. So Facebook has a GitHub account, Facebook. So if you see it, these people are collaborators, or these people are the contributors. They write the code here. And here I can see there is one project and 116 repositories here. 116 repositories. Okay. Now I can see the code, but I cannot make changes because the project which they have created, okay, they have not created it as a public. So I'll just show you. If you create a repository, okay, I'm going to create a new repository. So when you create a repository, it will ask you whether you want to create a public one or a private one. So if you create a private one, you and your team members can only see the content. Okay, means any other user cannot see the content. But if you are creating a public one, okay, then anyone on the internet can see the repository. Obviously, they cannot make changes, but they can see the content. Like I want to see what is there in AWS repository, means what code AWS has written. So I can come here and put like this, github.com, AWS labs. So AWS has, you can see here, AWS has a lot of repositories. There are 4 projects, 638 repositories, and you can see these many people are working in their repository. These many people are there. So obviously, how many? 117 people are there, and I can see all of them. Now, one very important thing which you will see here is that this account is verified. This account is verified means it is a paid account or it is an enterprise account. Okay. If you go to my account, you will see it is not saying anything like verified or anything like that. Because I'm using a free tier account. So even if I come here, it will not show verified or anything like that. This is a free account. Okay. So this is also a way in which you will come to know that whether it's a paid account or a free account. Obviously, when you go to settings and all, there also it will show you that it's a paid account or a free account. And if it's a paid free account, then they will ask you to upgrade. Upgrade in the sense they will ask you to buy. Okay, so this is a personal account. Now here the current plan says $0 per month. But yes, in case you are using it for a commercial purpose, you can go with $4 per month. There are other plans also. And there are a lot of benefits related to that. Anyhow, this is the centralized location, or this is the location where I will put my stuffs. Then comes the local repository. What is there in the local repository? Now for local repository, again the same thing, but this time I will say git SCM. Git SCM or Git source code management will have the Git thing. Free account is free or unlimited times. Yes, it is free, but there are caps. Like I don't think more than 5 private repositories you can make, but free account gives you a lot of things for free. Git SCM download. Okay, I just came Git SCM download. Here the URL is different. It is git-scm.com. So if I come here to downloads, I will be able to come here. Now it depends what kind of operating system you're using. If you're using a Windows machine, like how I am using, then you can download something called Git Bash. So you can simply come here and download it. You can simply come here and download it and simply go next, and it will download everything for you. Okay. So that is in case you want to download on your local machine, on your Git machine, okay, or on your Windows machine. In case you want to put it on Windows machine or Linux machine, there is a different set of command. Mac, there is a different set of command. So what I'm going to do is I want to put it on cloud because I want to do everything from my cloud machine. So I will first log into my AWS console. And here I will log in. And I will create an instance. Okay. And on that instance, I will create my Git. What is Git SCM GitHub in simple words? It is a place where you can keep your code. In simple words, it's a place where you can keep your code. So let me say you are making a code change. So at the end of the day, you want that everybody should be, at least in your team, should be able to see the code. So you keep it in GitHub. If you locally want to change it, you do it in Git. So it is a source code management or a place where you can keep your stuffs, code basically. I will go to EC2. I'm in North Virginia. You can see here EC2. Let me go inside. And I'll quickly create one EC2 instance. Okay. And then I'll show you how to install Git on top of that. So running is 0. Let me come here to EC2 instance, launch a new instance, give a name. So let me say it is Git server. I'm using Amazon Linux. I'm going with T2 micro. Key pair, I have one. So I'll use that. Let me see. I have this DevOps KP. Okay, let me see if I have anything else. Okay, let me use this, but whether I have it or not. One second. Let me see if I have these keys. Okay, let me use this only, AWS KP. Okay, and network, I leave everything as default. Here, just I will use the security group which I have. I think I have this web security group or DevOps security group, something like this. DevOps security group I have. Using these default things, I will go ahead and launch my instance. So at least at this point of time, you should be aware how to launch an instance. Once you have successfully launched your instance, you will get an ARN. So you have to go here and click on this and your EC2 instance will open. It will take some time to come up, but we will wait for that time till it is coming up. Everything when you are showing instances, it is 0. Shall we create n number of instances? Shall we delete them every time? Yes. So every time to save cost, either you stop it or delete it. Next time when you want, you again create it. There's no problem here. So that will help you to practice. So I will prefer that if I'm not using it, either I should delete it or I should stop it, but don't keep it running. If it is running, unnecessary cost will be there. So what I have done is I have just logged into my EC2 machine by clicking on connect, and it says EC2 user @ the private IP address. What I will do, I'll become root user. How? Sudo -. Once I become a root user, I can see here it is showing me root. Now I will come here and say host name, give a name. Let me say Git server. And again, sudo -. So I can see root @ Git server. So I'm all set. Now, if I type here Git, it will say Git not found because I have not installed Git and Git does not come pre-installed. So I'll go ahead and install Git. How to do it? Yum install Git and then -y. Now, automatically it will connect itself to internet. From there, it will pick the latest version and it will go ahead and get me the software. Now, if I come here and say Git -- version, I can see 2.34.3 is the version which is downloaded. I'll clear everything. Now, I don't know what is Git. Just I installed Git. I created an account in GitHub. I know Git is local and GitHub is remote or central. Now, I want to start. So to get used to the commands, you can type here git --help. If you type git --help, it will give you the list of commands which are very commonly used here. So you can take this, take a printout or keep it anywhere and start your work. So this is the list. So you can start copying the list and keep this list with you. This is one way of working. The other way of working can be, you can come here and say git cheat sheet. So when you come with git cheat sheet, again, like Unix cheat sheet, you will get hundreds and thousands of cheat sheets here. Pick any one of that. There's no hard and fast rule that you should pick this only or that only. Pick any cheat sheet of your choice and start your work. Anyone. Let me say I picked the Atlassian.com. So Git is owned by this company, Atlassian. So you can take this and you will start your work. Again, it is up to you. There is no one forcing you that you should use this only or that only. But if you use this, it is owned by the company called Git. And you will see Bitbucket is also owned by them. So the commands will be more or less same. And this is the cheat sheet. Git init, git clone, git commit. So at least you will come to know which command is used for what. Okay. So as of now, what I'll do is I'll stop here only. So today in the class, we have done two things basically. We have understood the concept of Git, GitHub, SCM, and version control. When we say version control, we are talking about DDCS and CVCS. Then we came to know that Git and GitHub are two different things. One is web and the other one is downloaded and installed on the local machine. At any point of time, you can go back and uninstall in case you require. But if I have to keep my work, I need to know the commands. And to know the commands, I have two options. I can install Git and say git --help and take the help command and take all the commands. Or I can go with some cheat sheet where they will tell me what each command means. Don't worry, hardly there are 20 or 25 commands here. And that is all, nothing more than is required. So you simply remember these commands like git init, git clone, git pull, git push. All these commands will be there. Now, from interview perspective, there are three important questions which you should prepare for today's class. First is, what is the difference between SVN and GitHub? So just type those questions so that you keep a track of. If you are unable to hear, please rejoin in case you are unable to hear. So the first question will be, difference between SVN and Git. Okay. Second question will be how to migrate from SVN to Git. Third question will be difference between Git and GitHub. Okay, so from today's question, these are the three important questions which you should be able to answer. Okay, if you are not able to answer right now, go through the recordings, see everything step by step, start preparing notes. I will always say prepare notes because every day you may not get time to see the recordings again and again. But if you see the recording once, prepare your notes, things will become easy for you. I will provide notes, that's not a problem, but your notes is more important. If you prepare your notes, you get more understanding, and whenever you have to revise, you get more understanding of what you have written. So final words, anyone having any questions, please go ahead. We can take questions now. Fine. See no questions. So we meet tomorrow again at the same time and we resume from here. See you then, guys. Bye. Whenever you are saying it is easy to do, wherever, whatever you are saying is easy to do. See, whatever I am saying is easy to do. I understand that. But yes, you are absolutely right. Unless and until you practice, you cannot become an expert. So if you want to become an expert, definitely you have to go ahead and practice this, undoubtedly. See, initially it will take time. So if you are taking 4 to 6 hours, it will. Anji, there are a few things which I'm leaving it for you. If you want everything, I can give you. I have those PPTs with me. But the problem will be that tomorrow when there is a different question coming up, you will get stuck. You will not be able to answer. You will only be able to answer those 10, 20, 100 questions, which I will say. That's why I'm saying explore. I will give you answers to this. I don't have any problem in giving answers. But the thing is, if you stop thinking, if you don't put your hands, get your hands dirty, then trust me, it is going to be very difficult. I am very, very clean on this. If you want, I can help you here. I can give you the answers. And finding the answers is not a big deal. You put it on this thing. What you say, you put it on Google, you'll find the answers. But the important thing is whether you are able to do it yourself or not. If not, then I'm definitely going to help you. Don't worry. Whatever your name is, MI211 something, please get in touch with your coordinator and they will help you with the question which you have asked. Okay. So please. Okay, fine. See you then, guys, tomorrow, considering that there are no questions.